I never thought 3 words could knock the air out of my lungs, but they did. I remember standing there frozen, staring at this kid everyone else saw as trouble, as nothing, as disposable, and hearing him say them so calmly it was almost polite. 3 words. That's all it took to flip my life upside down and force me to look at myself in a way I'd been avoiding for years. Yeah, that moment didn't feel heroic. It felt humiliating, and it was exactly what I needed. Let me rewind a bit, because to understand why those words mattered, you have to understand who I was before them. My name's Ethan Cole. If you Googled me a year ago, you'd see words like investor-developer, philanthropist, self-made. You wouldn't see the parts where I cut corners, trusted the wrong people, or decided some lives mattered less because it made things easier. I lived in a glass and steel house overlooking the city, the kind of place that smells like money and silence. Every morning started the same way. Treadmill, black coffee, financial news on mute, my reflection staring back at me like a man who'd already won. The calls I didn't answer mattered more than the ones I did, especially the ones from Willow Ridge Care Center. My mother lived there. 79, early dementia. I told myself I was doing the right thing. Best doctors, best facility weekly visits. On paper, I was a good son. In reality, I kept her life tidy so I wouldn't have to deal with the mess of it. When the staff called 3 times in 1 week, I ignored it. She could wait. She always had. What I didn't tell anyone was about the notes. Handwritten, no return address, always arriving on the first Tuesday of the month. Same sentence every time. Ask your mother about Daniel. I laughed the first time, tossed it. The second time, I felt annoyed. By the 6th, I felt uneasy. I told myself it was some kind of scam, someone fishing for money or attention. No demands, no threats. Just that sentence sitting there like an itch you can't scratch. My business partner, Mark Halstead, asked me one day if anyone had been reaching out about old family stuff. He said it casually, like it didn't matter. I lied without thinking. Said no. Hung up, stared at my phone, and realized something was off. I trusted Mark with everything. Or at least I thought I did. I finally went to Willow Ridge out of obligation, not love. The place smelled like antiseptic and resignation. My mom was having a bad day, asking the same question over and over, her eyes drifting past me like she was looking for someone else. Then, out of nowhere, she locked eyes with me and said, clear as day, "Did you read the notes?" I froze. Asked what notes. She frowned, like I was the confused one, then the moment passed. She asked me when Daniel was coming to visit. I blamed the dementia. That was my go-to move. As I was leaving, a nurse stopped me. She mentioned an unauthorized visitor, a teenage boy. He'd been coming by for months, always signing in under different names, always on Tuesdays, always asking to see my mother, and she'd been asking the front desk to call Mark. Hearing Mark's name in that place hit me like a slap. The notes, the boy, my mother's sudden clarity. All of it started lining up in ways I didn't like. The next morning the call came early. He's back, they said, and he won't leave. I drove there like my foot was glued to the gas pedal. I don't remember the trip, I remember the door, half open. Sunlight cutting across the room. My mother sitting there crying. Not confused tears, not scared tears. These were different. Relief. Joy. Her hand was wrapped around someone else's. A young hand. Calloused. Steady. The boy knelt beside her like he belonged there. And I lost it. What are you doing with her? Get away from my mother. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't ask why. I saw a black kid in a hoodie near my vulnerable mother, and I went straight to anger. That's not pretty to admit, but it's true. Security rushed in behind me. The kid didn't move. He looked up at me calm, almost curious. My mother begged me to stop. I ignored her. When he stood, he was taller than I expected. Stronger, too. There was something familiar about his face that made my stomach twist. Then he said it. She's my grandmother. I laughed. Actually laughed. Told him he was insane. Told him to ask her. And for one sharp, terrifying moment, the fog lifted from her eyes. She looked at me like she used to when I was a kid and lying to her. You had a brother Ethan, she said. His name was Daniel. Everything after that felt unreal. The notes suddenly made sense. Ask about Daniel. The missing photo frame in her room I'd never questioned. Security grabbed the kid and dragged him toward the door. Photos spilled from his jacket onto the floor. Old ones. Faded. In one of them, I was a kid with a missing tooth standing next to another boy with my eyes, my smile. I'd never seen him before, but I knew who he was. "That's your uncle," the kid said as they pulled him away. "My grandfather. The one your family erased." I sat in my car for almost an hour afterward, staring at the steering wheel, telling myself it was all a con. I hired a private investigator. Expected to find a scam. What I found was a kid named Lucas Reed. 17. Foster care, dead father, homeless, and a property demolition signed by my company the same year his life fell apart. My signature was on it. I didn't remember signing it. I signed dozens of those every month. Mark handled the details. I trusted him. A journalist reached out next. Claire Donovan. She said she'd been investigating my company for 2 years. She said my mother had ordered a DNA test before her memory declined. She said proof existed. And she said the boy's father hadn't died by accident. When the DNA results came back, there was no escaping it. 99% certainty. Lucas was my nephew. The 3 words were true. What I didn't know yet was that my mother had been fighting a quiet war for years. Everyone thought she was fading. Confused. Harmless. In reality, she'd been gathering evidence, hiding documents, recording phone calls. Mark had known about Daniel, my erased uncle, and used that secret to keep her silent while he ran side deals through my company. The worst part was realizing my ignorance had consequences. My company demolished Lucas's father's home. 3 months later, the man was dead. Officially an overdose. Unofficially suffocation. Someone drugged him and made it look accidental. The trail led straight to Mark. When Claire published her story, I thought it was over. Mark was suspended. Investigations opened. I felt something like hope. Then, Mark held a press conference, produced a fake DNA test from a lab he secretly controlled, painted Lucas as a fraud, painted me as unstable. The board stripped me of power. Lucas was arrested. Claire's story was pulled. Mark won. Or so he thought. I went back to Willow Ridge that night with nothing left. Told my mother I'd failed. That everything was gone, and she squeezed my hand and looked at me with a clarity that scared me more than the dementia ever had. She told me she'd been pretending, recording every call, 48 conversations over 2 years. In one of them, Mark described exactly how Lucas's father died. Calmly, confidently, because he thought she'd forget. She gave me a key to a safety deposit box. Inside was everything. The real DNA test, surveillance photos, financial records, and an email that read, "Handle it. Make it look accidental." Signed by Mark. From there, things moved fast. Charges dropped against Lucas. Claire republished with evidence that couldn't be buried. A former compliance officer came forward. Mark agreed to meet me privately, still thinking he was untouchable. I played the recordings. His voice, his words. He went pale. 3 days later, federal agents arrested him. Mark will spend the next 20 years in prison. My company was dissolved. Its assets went to a restitution fund for displaced families. Lucas got a scholarship. Architecture. He's rebuilding what people like me helped destroy. My mother doesn't remember any of it now. The fog is permanent. She doesn't know my name. But sometimes she squeezes my hand and I know some part of her remembers she won. 3 words started it all. She's my grandmother. 3 words from a kid everyone dismissed. 3 words that broke me and forced me to rebuild from the ground up. So here's what I want to ask you. How often do we decide who matters before we know the truth? And what would you do if the person you underestimated turned out to be the one holding all the cards? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue with me if you want. Tell me about a time you were wrong or a time someone surprised you. If you believe justice should be louder than power, share this story. Let's talk about it.